rain-slicked streets of Boston gleamed under the sodium glow of streetlights as I gunned my car through a yellow light, heart pounding from the near miss I'd just escaped. The brakes had failed at the last intersection, my sedan lurching toward a semi before I yanked the wheel and skidded onto the shoulder. A mechanic's voice still echoed in my head from the rushed call. "Someone tampered with the lines, Miss Vance. This wasn't wear and tear." My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening. Someone wanted me out of the picture tonight, but I had a dinner to host. I had a point to prove. I'm Ava Vance, and I'd poured everything, every dollar, every sleepless night, into tonight's dinner at the Glow, my restaurant, to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday. The place was a beacon of my success, a 3-story haven of polished oak and candlelight I'd built from the ashes of a failing dive bar. I'd paid for every detail: the 5-course menu, the vintage Bordeaux, the peonies flown in from Provence. All I wanted was a seat at the family table, a moment to feel like I belonged. But as I pulled into the valet line, a cold knot tightened in my gut. My family had a way of making me feel like a ghost in my own story. The Glow's glass doors loomed ahead, reflecting my silhouette against the stormy Boston night. I smoothed my black dress, the one my sister, Madeline, would probably call too plain for a place like this. My grandmother's ruby ring glinted on my finger, a quiet reminder of her words. "You have fire in you, Ava. Never let them dim it." I stepped out, heels clicking on wet pavement, and handed my keys to the valet, who gave me a knowing nod. He didn't know I owned the building, but he'd seen me orchestrate every detail of this place. Quiet leverage was my armor, and I wore it well. Inside, the air smelled of rosemary focaccia and beeswax candles. Chandeliers cast a golden haze over linen-draped tables, and a jazz trio's soft notes curled through the room like smoke. My pulse quickened, the way it used to before debate club matches in high school, when I'd rehearse arguments no one ever heard. Tonight was supposed to be different. I'd convinced myself this dinner might finally feel like family, not a courtroom where I was perpetually on trial for being the practical daughter, single at 35, successful, but somehow still invisible. I scanned the dining room, spotting my family tucked beneath a canopy of Edison bulbs. My mother's laugh floated across the crystal glassware, a sound that yanked me back to childhood Sundays when she'd hum while braiding my hair. For a heartbeat, I let myself hope. Then I reached the table. 12 chairs, 11 place settings. My father, 2 aunts, my cousin Lila, even Madeline's yoga coach. Everyone had a name card, etched in gold calligraphy. But not me. My spot at the far end held a lone dessert spoon, no card, no acknowledgement. I froze, the air suddenly heavy with the scent of the pumpkin bisque I'd chosen for the menu. My menu. My restaurant, my money. Madeline, her blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon, raised her wineglass in a mock salute. "Boston suits you, Ava," she said, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. "Still flipping houses, or whatever it is you do?" Laughter rippled around the table, sharp and practiced, like a chorus trained to cut. My mother's eyes met mine, softened for a split second, then darted to her napkin. No one corrected Madeline. No one invited me to sit. I counted the chairs again, as if the math might change. It didn't. William, the maitre d', appeared behind me, his face tight with understanding. He reached for a spare chair, but before he could slide it in, Madeline flicked her wrist. "We're full," she said, casual as tossing a coin. Her lips curled. "This place isn't for Hasby." The word landed like a blade slicing through the hum of the jazz trio. My face burned, but my feet wouldn't move. I stared at the sparkling rosé I'd selected, the trout I'd tasted with the chef, the espresso mousse I'd approved for dessert. Every choice was mine, a silent plea for belonging. Yet my name was nowhere. Not on the table, not in their eyes. Memories crashed in like a rogue wave. Christmas 4 years ago, when I ran to the store for eggnog because Madeline forgot. The family reunion where I wrote a check for the venue but stood outside the group photo. The text from my father last New Year's, "Wish you were here," sent after their Instagram post went live without me. I'd been an afterthought so long I'd almost believed tonight might rewrite the script. I inhaled, letting the sting of Madeline's words mingle with the rosemary in the air. Then I turned to William. "Excuse us a moment," I said, my voice steady as granite. To him, softly, "Cancel the event, all of it. Reservations under AV Holdings." His eyes widened, but he nodded. "Yes, Miss Vance, right away," I added. "Pay the staff full wages and send them home. Family emergency." Gasps scattered like dropped marbles. Forks paused midair. Madeline's smile twitched, a crack in her perfect facade. My mother's head snapped up, confusion clouding her eyes. "Ava, what are you doing?" she asked, as if I'd just unplugged the lights. And I met her gaze, feeling the old ache for her approval, then let it slip away like sand. "I'm doing what you taught me," I said, warmth gone from my tone. "Staying in my place." The words hung in the air as I turned, my heels striking the hardwood with a rhythm that drowned out their murmurs. The Glow's doors sighed shut behind me, and the rain greeted me like an old friend, tapping the awning in a steady beat. Someone, my mother maybe, called my name, but no footsteps followed. The city's pulse swallowed their voices, and I let it. 4 blocks later, I reached my brownstone, the one I'd bought after my divorce, the one my family never bothered to visit. The elevator hummed as I rode to the top floor, alone. Inside my apartment, I flicked on a lamp, the light catching the cedar candle I'd lit earlier. Madeline once called it pretentious. I twisted open a bottle of sparkling water, its hiss the only applause I'd get tonight, sinking onto the couch. I didn't bother removing my coat. The chill of the night clung to me, but it felt cleaner than the humiliation I'd left behind. My phone buzzed, a text from Aunt Evelyn. "You didn't have to do that. We were just keeping the peace. No apology, just a tidy dismissal, as if my pain was a spilled drink to mop up." I hovered over the reply, then deleted it. Manipulation didn't deserve a response. Adrenaline faded, leaving clarity in its wake. I opened my laptop, pulled up the state business portal, and logged into AV Holdings. My name glowed next to managing member. I clicked amend articles, typing Ava Vance into the beneficiary field 100%. Under reason for change, I wrote revoking unauthorized access. I saved the draft, the confirmation line staring back like a promise. And there was more to do, lawyers, banks, vendors. But this was my first stroke on the ledger. I attached the file to an email for Professor Ellis, my old mentor, with the subject, cleaning house. I hit send, a faint smile curling my lips. Courtesy had bought me loneliness. Precision would buy me freedom. The rain softened outside, rinsing Boston streets clean. My family thought they'd played their hand, but I was reshuffling the deck. They'd erased me from their table, so I'd erase them from my future. That thought carried me into the night, steady as the city's hum. The next morning, I woke to the scent of damp pavement seeping through my window. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts, voicemails, a storm of family outrage. I ignored them, focusing instead on the meeting with Lucas, my lawyer. He arrived at 10 sharp, his silver-flecked hair catching the light as he surveyed the folders I'd stacked on my dining table. "You came prepared," he said, sliding a coffee mug across the table. "I'm not losing what I built," I replied, my voice low but firm. "If they come for the glow, I want the paperwork to bury them." Lucas sipped his coffee, eyes narrowing. "You sure about cutting them out completely? No shares, no gestures?" Positive. The word tasted like iron. He opened his laptop, pulling up AV Holdings files. Leases, contracts, bank letters filled the screen. Then he paused, highlighting a document from 3 years ago, a limited power of attorney, granting Madeline access to family financial oversight. My signature sat at the bottom, shaky, rushed. My stomach twisted. I didn't remember signing it, but a memory flickered. Madeline's tearful call claiming Dad needed emergency surgery and a loan for hospital collateral. I'd been racing between meetings, scribbling on a PDF in a parking lot, desperate to help. There was no surgery, just Madeline's maxed-out credit card. She lied, I said, exhaling through my nose, and I trusted her. Lucas shook his head. No hospital records, but if she's used this, there could be more damage. We need to dig. By afternoon, we'd drafted revocation notices and locked every LLC with dual biometric approval, mine and Lucas's. As he printed copies, I logged into the Glow's portal. A vendor entry caught my eye. Starlight Events, $17,500.00. Imported orchids and crystal stemware. Approved by Madeline for Mom's party. My jaw clenched. They hadn't just stolen my seat. They'd turned my company into their personal ATM. But there was no scattered game. I printed the invoice, circling her signature, and added it to a growing pile labeled evidence. Lucas packed his briefcase. Call if you find more. I'll file the revocations tomorrow. Alone, I stood at my counter, hands pressed against cool marble. My phone pinged a group chat photo of my family at Madeline's condo, smiling over lobster rolls. Caption, "Family nights are better without drama." I stared, then deleted the thread. Their faces vanished from my screen, leaving only my reflection, eyes sharp with resolve. That night, I unlocked the Glow's back entrance near midnight, the city silent except for the hum of distant traffic. The dining room lay still, exit signs casting red halos over empty tables. One had held my family's laughter while I stood forgotten. Now the chairs sat pushed in, mute and remorseful. In the office, I powered up the desktop, the blue glow filling the small space. I printed every suspicious transaction from the vendor ledger, pages spilling like confetti. Screenshots followed, access logs, forged signatures, timestamps. My hands trembled, not with anger but with a strange calm. This was what freedom felt like. A tap at the door. Sophie, my general manager, stepped in, her hair in a messy bun, eyes heavy from a nap I'd interrupted. "Everything okay?" she asked. I slid an invoice toward her. "Someone's been lighting fires in our books." She studied it, her face falling. "I approved that vendor. Madeline said you were too busy, that she was co-owner. I thought—" "You couldn't have known," I said, keeping my voice soft. My mistake was leaving the door unlocked. I opened the security console, revoked all users except Sophie and me, and enrolled our fingerprints. From now on, the system needs skin, not passwords. Sophie nodded, relief mixing with determination. "I'm sorry, Ava. This wasn't your betrayal," I told her. "It was mine to fix." She left to update the staff, and I sank onto the office stool, memories pulling me back. I was 19, home from college, stirring risotto for Dad's retirement dinner. My hands ached, one bandage from a burn, but I kept going, hoping for a nod. Instead, Dad turned to Madeline, radiant in her new blazer, and said, "You carry the Van's name forward." I'd smiled because daughters are taught to, but something cracked inside me that night. I snapped back to the present, the company website glowing on screen. Vance Family Hospitality. No mention of Ava. The brand I'd saved wore our surname like a stolen crown. I opened the state registry, filed an amendment, and typed a new name, Ava Vance Collective. In the purpose field, I wrote, "Because hiding is over." I drafted a rebranding plan. Press releases, new signage, business cards with AVC and silver foil. Not revenge, but truth. The paperwork cued, I locked the evidence in a safe and stepped outside. Boston's drizzle smelled of wet stone and possibility. I pictured the sunrise glinting off a new logo, my initials carved into the city's skyline. I wasn't taking a seat. I was building the whole damn table. 3 days later, I sent a group text. Dinner, Saturday 7 p.m., the glow, no misunderstandings. Responses dripped in, smug and patronizing. "Glad you're coming around, Ava." They thought I was begging for their approval. They had no idea the table was mine. Saturday pulsed with the glow's weekend rhythm, but I'd cleared the private dining hall. No walk-ins, just family. I adjusted the lighting, brighter, colder, exposing every flaw. On the wall, a new sign, Ava Vance House. Simple. True. They arrived early, Madeline leading in a dress that screamed money but whispered desperation. My parents followed, dressed for a gala, not a family dinner. My brother Ethan trailed behind, smirking. Madeline eyed my black blouse and apron. "That's what you're wearing," she said, chuckling. Dad patted my shoulder. "Don't get in your own way, Ava." I nodded, letting their words slide off. The table had 10 settings, 9 name cards. Mine was missing again. Madeline leaned in, her voice low. "This place isn't for has-beens, Ava." Laughter followed, sharp and synchronized. I didn't flinch. I smiled, calm as a predator, and walked to the kitchen. My team stood ready. I raised a hand. "Cancel every dish. Shut the wine taps. Lock the dessert fridge. No one pays. No one eats." Sophie nodded, no questions asked. Back in the hall, servers cleared plates mid-bite. A wine glass vanished mid-pour. Madeline's eyes narrowed. "What's going on?" I stepped forward, voice clear. "If you're not here to honor me, you won't be fed by me." Silence swallowed the room. My footsteps echoed as I walked out, the city's pulse matching mine. No one followed. For once, no one talked over me. By morning, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from a Boston Globe reporter, Noah. "Heard something went down at the Glow. Want your side?" News traveled fast when wine taps dried up in front of Boston's elite. I met Noah in a quiet park, the air sharp with pine and coffee. I handed him a folder. Checks I'd signed, spreadsheets I'd balanced, emails where I'd made the calls, my name on the lease, the deposit, the deeds. "They know you own it?" he asked. I nodded. "They just forgot I exist." He scribbled. "Can I use your name?" "Use AV," I said. "Let them guess." The article hit like a bomb. My family's group chat exploded. Madeline's panic, Dad's fury, Ethan's whining. I clicked leave group, the tap feeling like a deep breath. Later, a message from Miss Thornton, my high school English teacher. "You were never invisible to me, Ava." Her words cracked the stone in my chest. Then came the envelope. A lawsuit threat from Dad's firm, demanding retraction, claiming defamation. I laughed, sharp and real. They thought fear would bend me. They didn't know who I was. I drove to the Glow, the staff's nods warmer now. A napkin on the host stand read, "Thank you for proving quiet strength can roar." My heart lifted. A knock interrupted my niece Lila in her school blazer. "Aunt Ava," she whispered, "I saw the article. I want to be like you. Brave." I hugged her, fierce and protective. Brave means telling the truth, even when it shakes the walls. That night, I lit a candle by my mother's old photo, her smile frozen in a time before everything fractured. She'd told me silence could be louder than shouting. Now I understood. My silence wasn't surrender. It was mine, and it spoke volumes. The Boston sky hung heavy with the threat of snow as I stood in the quiet of my apartment, the faint glow of a cedar candle flickering against the darkness. The fallout from the dinner at the Glow had only just begun, and my phone vibrated with a new menace. A voicemail, anonymous, voice distorted like gravel dragged across metal. Retract the article, or you'll regret stepping foot in that restaurant again. My pulse spiked, but I didn't flinch. I'd faced worse than threats. I'd built an empire from a failing cafe, mortgaged my home, and stared down bankruptcy. A faceless coward wasn't going to shake me. Still, the words lingered, sharp as the winter air seeping through my window. Someone didn't just want me silent. They wanted me gone. I'm Ava Vance, and I'd spent years carving a place in a family that treated me like a footnote. The Glow, my restaurant, was supposed to be my offering to them, a bridge to belonging. Instead, it became a battlefield, exposing their betrayal. My sister Madeline had mocked me, called me a has-been, and my family had erased me from their table. I'd canceled their dinner, revealing I owned the place through AV Holdings, and walked away, leaving their stunned faces behind. Now, the Boston Globe article, with my initials AV and a folder of evidence, checks, leases, emails, had cracked their polished facade. They'd threatened a lawsuit, but I wasn't backing down. The table was mine, and I was done begging for a seat. I deleted the voicemail and opened my laptop, the screen casting a blue glow over my coffee table. The state registry portal loaded, and I finalized the amendment to rename my company Ava Vance Collective. The cursor blinked under the purpose field, because hiding is over. I hit submit, the confirmation a quiet victory, but victory didn't mean safety. The anonymous threat gnawed at me, a reminder that my family or someone close played dirty. I needed to move fast. The next morning I met Sophie, my general manager, at the Glow before dawn. The restaurant was silent, its linen-draped tables ghostly in the pre-light gloom. We reviewed the vendor ledger, pages of transactions spilling across my desk like evidence of a crime scene. One entry burned into my vision. Starlight Events. Orchids and crystal for a party that never happened, paid for with my money. My jaw tightened. They hadn't just stolen my seat. They'd raided my empire while I stood in the shadows. Sophie's face paled as she scanned the invoice. I approved it, Ava. Madeline said she was co-owner, that you delegated her. It's not on you, I cut in, my voice soft but firm. I left the door unlocked too long. I opened the security console, revoked every user except us, and enrolled our fingerprints. No more passwords, skin only. She nodded, her eyes glossy with guilt and resolve. What's next? We dig, I said. Every transaction, every login. They don't get to bleed me dry. As Sophie left to brief the staff, I locked the office door and sank onto the stool, the weight of betrayal settling like dust. A memory clawed its way up, me at 19, stirring risotto for Dad's retirement dinner, my hand bandaged from a burn, hoping for a glance of pride. Instead, he'd turned to Madeline, radiant in her blazer, and said, "You'll carry the Vance name." I'd smiled, because daughters are taught to, but the crack in my chest had widened. Now it was a canyon, and I was done filling it with apologies. The computer pinged, an alert from the restaurant's system. Unauthorized login attempt detected. My heart lurched. I traced the IP, a local server tied to a cafe across town. Someone was trying to crack my books again. I locked the system down, but the timing wasn't coincidence. The anonymous threat, the hacked login, it was a coordinated hit. I called Lucas, my lawyer, and forwarded the alert. Someone's coming for the accounts, I said. Find out who. Lies it, Lucas replied, his voice steady. But Ava, tighten your personal security. This feels personal. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon as I left the glow, a truck roared through a red light, missing me by inches. My breath caught, the screech of tires echoing in my ears. The driver didn't stop, but I caught a glimpse of a familiar sticker on the bumper, a logo from Madeline's yoga studio. My hands shook as I dialed Lucas again. Add vehicular tampering to the list, I said, forcing calm, and check Madeline's connections. By evening, I was back in my brownstone, the city's hum a distant lullaby. I lit another candle, its cedar scent grounding me, and opened my laptop. The vendor portal showed more anomalies, small withdrawals, disguised as consulting fees, all approved by Madeline. I printed them, adding to the evidence pile. Then my phone buzzed. A group chat photo from my family, laughing over sushi at Madeline's condo. Caption: Real family doesn't make scenes. I stared, my thumb hovering over the screen, then clicked leave group. The silence felt like oxygen. But silence didn't last. At 2 a.m., my apartment's smoke alarm blared, pulling me from a restless sleep. The air was acrid, a faint hiss coming from the kitchen. A gas line had been tampered with, the valve loosened just enough to leak. I shut it off, heart hammering, and opened every window, the icy Boston air flooding in. Someone had been here, in my home. I checked the security footage. Nothing. Wiped clean, the anonymous threat wasn't a bluff. They were escalating. I called Sophie. Double security at the glow. Cameras, locks, everything. My voice was steel, but inside, fear licked at my edges. I wasn't just fighting for my business. I was fighting for my life. The next day, Lucas arrived with a grim expression and a thicker folder. Madeline's been busy, he said, sliding documents across my dining table. Bank records showed she'd used the forged power of attorney to siphon $50,000, 0 cents over 2 years, funneled through fake vendors. And this, he added, pointing to a scanned email, Madeline had pitched investors, claiming co-ownership of the glow using my deeds as collateral. My blood ran cold. She's selling my life out from under me. Lucas nodded. We've revoked the power of attorney, but she's got allies. One investor's linked to that truck's plates. We're tracing it. I leaned back, the weight of betrayal heavier than ever. Madeline hadn't just mocked me. She'd weaponized my trust. I thought of the gas leak, the truck, the hacked system. They're not stopping, I said. What's my move? File fraud charges, Lucas said, and go public. The Globe article was a start, but you need to claim your story fully. I hesitated. Going public meant exposing every wound, every slight, to Boston's elite and beyond. But staying silent meant letting Madeline rewrite my legacy. Do it, I said, but I want control of the narrative. That night, I met Noah, the Globe reporter, at a quiet park bench in the Common, the air sharp with frost and coffee. I handed him a new folder. More evidence, from the forged signature to the fake vendor invoices. Use AV, I said. Let them wonder who's behind it. Noah flipped through the pages, his eyes sharp. They know you own the glow? I nodded, slow and deliberate. They just thought I'd stay invisible. He scribbled. This'll hit hard. You ready for the fallout? I've been ready my whole life, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. The article dropped the next morning, a Sunday, and Boston woke to headlines. Ave, the hidden force behind Vance Hospitality. My initials burned across the page, backed by scans of my signatures, my loans, my late-night spreadsheets. Social media erupted. speculation, praise, and a few venomous comments from my family's allies. Madeline's name trended alongside mine, her lies laid bare. I didn't read the replies. I didn't need to. But the retaliation came fast. At noon, a spiked latte at my favorite coffee shop tasted bitter, metallic. I spat it out, my heart racing as the barista apologized, swearing it was an accident. I didn't buy it. I sent the cup for testing. Traces of a sedative enough to knock me out. Someone wanted me silenced permanently. I tightened my security, hired a bodyguard, and kept moving. All by my, The Boston Culinary Gala loomed, a glittering event where my family planned to claim credit for the Glow's success. They'd invited me not out of kindness, but to parade me as a prop, smoothing over the cracks the article had exposed. I went, but not as their pawn. I chose a sapphire dress, bold and unapologetic, the ruby ring glinting on my finger. My mother's voice echoed, "Don't embarrass yourself, Ava." But I pushed it aside. This was my stage now. The convention center glowed with amber lights, cameras flashing as Boston's elite mingled. My family stood near the champagne bar, Madeline's sequined gown catching every spotlight. She went pale when she saw me, her confidence crumbling. The MC took the stage praising the Vance family legacy. Slides flashed, Dad with investors, Madeline cutting a ribbon, Ethan shaking hands, not a single image of me. Then the screen flickered, static, then raw footage. Me at 25, scrubbing floors at the Glow's predecessor. Me signing loans, face tight with worry. My voice, from an old intern's interview, echoed, "I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to build something worth seeing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father's jaw clenched. My mother gripped her clutch. Madeline looked ready to flee. Backstage, I heard my father's voice bark, "Who approved this?" The planner's cool reply, "Someone had to tell the truth." I stood behind a curtain, half hidden, my eyes locking with Dad's. For the first time, he saw me. Not as a shadow, but as a force. I didn't speak. My silence said enough. "You don't own this room anymore." The media swarmed. A reporter, mic trembling, asked, "Miss Vance, why didn't they give you a seat?" I looked at her, steady. "Some seats aren't given. They're claimed." By morning, my words were everywhere. Quoted, shared, scrawled across blogs. I didn't stay to watch. I walked into the night, the air crisp and mine. A young chef trailed me, then another, their eyes bright with hope, not pity. "I came to meet you," one said, "not them." Her words cracked something open in me, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. 2 weeks later, I stood in the Reclamation Haven, my new tasting room in Boston's South End. The brick-walled space was small, intimate, a cathedral of second chances. 8 hand-carved chairs circled a walnut table, no name cards, no reserved signs. Every seat was earned. I called it a space for the overlooked, chefs, dreamers, those denied a place at the table. I'd transferred my shares in the Glow and its sister restaurants to a grant for women starting with nothing but grit. The papers, signed and delivered to my father's desk, came with a single line. "You were right. That place wasn't for failures. It was for cowards." I walked away before he could respond. That morning, a courier brought a letter from the mayor, embossed with the city seal. A citation for entrepreneurial impact to be awarded at the same convention center where my family tried to erase me. I laughed, the sound sharp and free. Life loved irony. Madeline tried to call, her texts pleading, "Can we talk? Let me explain." I let the screen dim. Not revenge, just release. Sophie, now my operations lead, chuckled at the missed calls. "They want a seat at your table now, huh?" I smiled, handing her the evening's menu cards. The Reclamation Haven's first guests arrived. A single mom who'd saved for culinary school, an immigrant baker who'd fought for his visa, 2 students I'd mentored after rejections. We toasted with pomegranate spritz, my grandmother's favorite. To building what we were denied, I said, glasses chiming against brick. Midway through the seared halibut, the door creaked. A teenage girl, Amira, daughter of a critic who'd once called my food pedestrian, stood clutching a backpack. Her eyes screamed fear and hope. I crossed the room. "You're not late," I said, guiding her to an empty chair left open by design. "You're exactly where you need to be." As rosewater semolina cape closed the night, I sat back, gratitude settling like a warm ember. No flashbulbs, no applause, just voices finding home. My mother's quiet claps, my grandmother's ring, the mayor's letter. They anchored me. The scar of invisibility had faded. A reminder, not a wound. But the fight wasn't over. That night, as I locked up, a shadow moved across the alley. Footsteps, quick and deliberate, faded into the dark. My phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "You can't hide forever." I gripped the ruby ring, my breath steady. They'd come for my empire, my life, my name. But I'd built this table, and I'd defend it with everything I had.